And in your eyeball, which has a different vascular system than your body, you have the fastest moving muscle in the body. And it doesn't see everything that it thinks it sees. And so we all have a blind spot. In astrology, I believe it's where Neptune hits other people. So I always tell my clients, wherever you have Neptune, do not try to form really strong, supportive relationships unless you really know what you're doing, because you can't really see that person. So I think it's sometimes the 12th house, sometimes it's the 7th house, because that's where we project. And you know, where we project is where the shadow lives. And you know, if you say to yourself, my 7th house I've made peace with, great, but there will always be an exception to that. Always.
And if you have Neptune in the 7th house?
I have it. It's like, okay, you know, it's just the way it is.
But it's doubling.
I think it's just a challenge. Because here's what happens. And this is what Jung said. He said, the stronger your ego ideal, the stronger the presence of the shadow. The more you try to be a good person, the more you see the goodness in other people, the stronger the presence of, oh, I don't think so. You just projected your ego ideal onto them, and they're going to show you how they're not like that. Mm-hmm. So I think that's partly why it is. But you know, Neptune is just, to me, it's the planet of the collective unconscious, which, according to Jung, it says by definition, the shadow, the collective unconscious, will always be somewhat mysterious. You'll never truly see it clearly. So you just have to say to yourself, who do I have as people that can see what I can't see, that can maybe give me some feedback that I might begin to assimilate. So Neptune in the 7th house, trust me, I'm 70 years old. It's still tricky to me. But it's not as tricky as it was when I was 60, 50, 40, 30, or 20. So, you know, hopefully we're educated about it. Mm-hmm. So it's tricky. But, you know, we chose these charts. We chose this time to be born. We obviously came in with a lot of development that we wanted to do and a lot of development that we already did. So I don't think anything is impossible. I think it's just challenging. What other kind? Yes?
I have a question about the male and female brain. So if the male brain only lights up one side at a time, whereas the female brain is lighting up both, when you look at a chart, we both have, for example, Venus and Mars symbolically representing both the masculine and feminine. So would women have an easier time then of integrating their masculine sides, since both sides of their brain are communicating, and perhaps men have a more difficult time integrating the
What
feminine?
a brilliant question.
No.
Yes, and it's not so much in my generation that was true, but in the times we have now, where androgyny, the original archetype according to Jung, is being lived by people. You know, all the marriages that I see that are functional marriages, or collaborative marriages, partnership marriages, power sharing marriages, where the man cooks and the woman works, and you know, everybody does everything. So yes, it's much easier for a woman to use the energy in both sides of her brain to be androgynous than it is for a man. Now, according to Jung, the anima, the inner feminine of a man, is feminine, and so is his soul. So he has two feminine components, in my view, to compensate for the lack of neurological function. The other thing that's kind of interesting to me, because I'm a peculiar person, I think things are interesting that other people say you're crazy, but you know, the first 6 weeks of gestation, all fetuses are female. And it's only in the 6th week that they develop the male sex characteristics and the male brain. And so there are 6 different forms of a male brain according to my understanding of things. And therefore there's a lot more mutation than there is in the female brain, because we kind of just get the whole package in two spots, whereas males get it in stages. And the middle passage for men, if they're maturing, is they develop a little bit more peacefulness, reasonableness, kindness. If they're not maturing, they go find a young woman to show you that they haven't grown up. So that is how it works. So you're right. Yeah.
Now that we're talking about gender transsexuals, people that are born men or women and they have this problem identifying with the opposite sex of being them, how does Jungian psychology relates to that?
He died before that became really well known. I happened to, when I was in graduate school, I worked, my professor was the head of the gender identity clinic at UTMB. So he said, we're going to make sure you know all about this. And so I learned more than I could ever hope to learn. I didn't see any PET scans. But, you know, I consider it's a real phenomenon. I don't have any doubt about it. You know, my assumption is maybe somebody was headed into a body going to be one gender, and something went wrong biologically, or something changed, and they decide, oh well, I'll just go on in now and make peace with it later. So, I personally know many transsexuals. I've had them as clients. I've sent them to the gender identity clinic at UTMB when it was operative. I don't know the neurobiology of it because I've never seen any PET scans. Nobody that I know has ever done any. So I can't explain it any better than that.
I don't want to sound like a political question, but I always wonder, like in our political system, the way it is right now, where there's no compromise and they're having trouble, the lack of women leaders in our political system, and how it started to move forward when one woman decided, I think it was Susan
Right.
Collins, decided to take it on, and the women started meeting from the different parties. Do you think that plays any role in the fact that we can't seem to compromise?
Of course I do. We're called mammals, not peniles, for a reason. I quote Ashley Montague, the great anthropologist who wrote a book in 1980 called The Natural Superiority of Women. And I saw him at Rice after I saw Joseph Campbell the same week. And he was 84 years old, cutest man I ever saw in my life. I wanted to marry him. He sat on a chair and he said, that's what he said. He said, remember, ladies, we're called mammals, not peniles, for a reason. And I thought, you go, guy. So the point is, if you believe some of the things we've all read when God was a woman, that we had over 10,000 years of history before the patriarchy in which females were in authority. My personal take on this is that once males banded together in groups, Lionel Tiger wrote a book, Men in Groups, and got weapons, all that reversed. But the weapons have become unusable now, and the myth of male supremacy is unimaginable now, and God is not a man, and men are not gods, and the whole support system that women have given men for the last 5,000 years has been withdrawn. I have a book I bought last year. It's called The End of Men and the Rise of Women by Hannah Rosen, and it's a statistical look at that very change in the last 20 years. So if those younger women who are finishing college, making more money than men, heading households, get involved in politics, I think we're going to have a paradigm shift soon. I really do. And, I'm a big fan of Nicholas Kristof and Cheryl Wu Dunn, and they have written and done some incredible work on that very topic. And the reason that the micro lending and support systems all go to women is if they lend money to women, they use it to take care of the community and their family, whereas the men go get drunk and gamble. So that's why this is happening. I think we're all young enough to live to see this change come about. I think it's going to be fabulous. Yes, Ginger.
I just heard a director was talking that makes films and movies, that they're having a hard time finding American men who play real masculine roles.
Well,
and they're going to Australia.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an interesting thing because, in my practice, and I still see clients 3 or 4 days a week, everybody I see who has a problem did not have a mature father. It's like, where did those men go? I don't know. They either died or they never grew up. And so I think what we're seeing in this country is very much what you're just saying, the lack of adult masculinity. And, I was part of the men's movement in the 80s. I was even in a PBS program called Save the Males. And, the things I said got, according to the guy that did the show, he said, everybody hates you. And I went, what else is new? But the other side of that is, for those of you who know Jung, know that one of the great Jungian analysts is Marion Woodman. She's, to me, the great Marion Woodman. And she had a wonderful brother named Fraser Voa. And he came and did workshops on the man of the new heartbeat. And man, I tell you, I got chills thinking about it. I was there, I listened to him, and he had a vision of an adult masculinity that's the mature masculinity. And for those that want to kind of embrace that idea, here is a book I recommend, written by 2 colleagues of mine that shudder every time I say this. It's called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, Archetypes of the Mature Masculine by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette. These are mythologists at the University of Chicago, and they don't think this book should be used the way I want to use it. And basically what they said is there are 4 basic structures of masculinity that are innate. And they got this from, I think, a very interesting idea. There was a psychiatrist by the name of John Weir Perry. And he wrote a book called Lord of the Four Quarters. And he worked with delusions and dreams of men in mental hospitals for 2 decades. And he said all the images were the same: the king, the warrior, the magician, or the lover. Now what these guys did in this book, they described the immature, the shadow, and the mature form. So what I tell men and women, read this, see which one you are, and see which stage you are in it, so that you can understand where your developmental tasks are. And you know, since women have a masculine component anonymous, it helps them make sense of life, it goes to work with them, it helps them balance their checkbook and make sense of nonsense. You know, we need to know our masculine as well as men need to. So, you know, I'm hopeful because I have 2 sons and I have 1 grandson, and I have a lot of good men clients and a lot of fabulous men friends, and many of you know I have a landscape company and I work only with men, and they're fabulous. So, you know, it's not a universal horrible thing. It's just, it's a rebalancing time, I think. You know, women are going up and men are kind of trying to find their way. That's what I think.